So namaste to all of you. This is Swami Bodhamayananda, Director, Vivekananda Institute of Human Excellence, Ramakrishna Math, Hyderabad, talking to you from Vivekananda Institute of Human Excellence, which is organizing this program. So as just now our volunteer co-host has said, please mute your video also and audio, video, please close. Only you are listening now and cooperate with us immediately. Time is 11 o'clock. We cannot waste time and we shall start our webinar on education, building a resurgent India through education. That is the topic today. We have invited our very senior Swamiji from Ramakrishna Mission, New Delhi, Srimad Swami Shantatmanji Maharaj. My pranams to him. And we have invited Sri V. Srinivas from Mumbai. He is a founder and MD of Illumin Knowledge Resources, an education NGO, which is doing enormous work in the field of education, spreading the message of Swami Vivekananda, preparing syllabus for corporate, for industry, for youth, for CBSE schools all over the country. So both of them have agreed for this webinar as part of this lockdown special process. Last Sunday, we did a program on India, education for India's past, present, and future. Grand response, very inspiring response from 150 people. And today already there are 200 people online. This Zoom facility is for 500 people from our devotee in volunteer in Visakhapatnam. He has offered this service. So we are able to reach everybody without any hindrance. So to keep that bandwidth, to keep that safe, I request all of you still online with video. Please switch off your, unmute your video also. Only Swami Shantatmanji, V. Srinivas and myself will be there on video. After they talk, I will also switch off my video. So this is a very important situation in the country. That is the pandemic in the whole world. And we are also in a very bad situation, whether it's Maharashtra, whether it's Tamil Nadu, whether it's New Delhi, Gujarat, and coming down to deep south. Everywhere there is a rush of infection. Thousands and thousands are getting affected. It is a very unhappy state, but we are all part of this society. So it's our responsibility to be safe, to be developing our immunity and remaining indoors and maintaining our respect for others, for the police, for the doctors. So this, thanks to technology, though we are in different parts of the country and many from outside the country, from London, from America, from Germany, from Netherlands, they're all joining our session today, our volunteer devotees who are spread out. The message has gone far and wide. So it's a good thing. Technology has brought us together, though we don't know much of each other. But it is not good for us to keep away physically. Classes everywhere closed, schools are closed, colleges are closed, institutions are closed, only a few companies working here and there. Things are not very bright, but we cannot sit quiet. We have to have some good ideas on education, on values, on service, on yoga, on meditation. So there are so many things to understand, but little by little, week after week, through Vivekananda Institute of Human Excellence webinars, we spread this message of excellence, spread this message of strength, spread the message of Swami Vivekananda in the whole country through different means, whether it's yoga classes, whether it's soft skills classes, whether it is our Shantatmanji's great initiative of spreading Vivekananda's message in thousands of schools in the country through the ACP program, which he will, I'm sure, will touch upon in his talk. So, revered Swami Shantatmanandaji is the secretary of the Ramakrishna Mission, New Delhi. I offer my humble pranams to him and thank him for his participation, for having accepted our invitation online. He was in our headquarters, Ramakrishna Mission headquarters, looking after the accounts and auditing department of the country of our entire organization for a very long time. And then he moved to Ramakrishna Mission New Delhi to assume the post of the secretary. Then there he is continuing again another 20 years, 25 years, spreading the message in the entire capital of India. And from there, sitting in New Delhi in different schools and institutions, traveled all over the world on invitation by the Ramakrishna Mission centers. And Delhi being the capital, a very rich heritage, rich culture, rich, should I say, background of the people. So he's working endlessly, tirelessly for spreading this message of Vivekananda and Vedanta. And we will listen to him and interact with him, an opportunity to meet Swamiji. Though all of us cannot go to New Delhi, or he cannot come personally to every city and town. We are on one click, we are always connected online to speak on education and interact on education. Very important subject today. Next we have Sri V. Srinivas. He is the founder and MD of Illumine Knowledge Resources. The word Illumine Knowledge is hopefully from the Gayatri Mantram, Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. O Lord, let my buddhi blossom. Let me be illumined so that I can understand the truth. I can understand what is life. Without the buddhi, there is no energy in us. So where is that buddhi today? So I think Srinivas is working on that, on illumining knowledge resources. He has produced many books, rather a syllabus for Gujarat University. He has published books for the ACP, Awakened Citizen Program under Ramakrishna Mission New Delhi. And he has produced books on human excellence for our institute in Hyderabad, and also working with Tatas and SBI and so many other important institutions in the country. So these are very important people for us today, with his experience in education, dealing with the problems at the corporate level, at the industry level. So Srinivas is the right man for the right time. He will also speak on what is happening in India, what should happen. The topic is building a resurgent India through education. I'm sure all of you must have seen the poster, seen our invitation poster in Facebook, in other medias, other groups sent in the country. So building a resurgent India, that was Swami Vivekananda's vision also. At Kanyakumari, 3 days and 3 nights, his meditation is something unparalleled, na bhuto na bhavishyati. A man meditating on India's past, India's present, and India's future. And said education alone can solve the problems of the country. What kind of education? Is it just career building education? Is it money making education? Is it just IT? Is it just engineering, or a doctor or a lawyer or a chartered accountant? Is that all education? So these are the things which we have to work on. Paravidya and aparavidya. 2 kinds of education are there. 2 kinds of knowledge is there in our tradition. One is the supreme knowledge, the spiritual knowledge. The second is the aparavidya, the technical knowledge, which the child is getting, which the youth are getting. But if the youth are getting proper education, why is there so much crimes, so much of misery, so much of suicides, addictions, and corruption and things like that? Why is education not able to solve the problem of the nation? There are personal problems, there are family problems, there are national problems. So where are we stuck up? Where are we heading to? Is there no end at the tunnel? Is there no light? Is there no hope? In the Chandogya Upanishad, there is a beautiful, what you call, statement, a very important message. Said, Yadeva Vidyaya Karo, Shraddhaya, Upanishadaya, tadeva viryavattaram bhavati. Whatever you do with shraddha, with absolute conviction, whatever you do with meditation, that is the Upanishad analysis, and whatever you do with knowledge, updating knowledge, the pure knowledge, tadeva viryavattaram bhavati, that will become excellent. That will become very strong. But we are not seeing that kind of effort today. So we need to think, we need to put our brains together and find out the right medicine, the right time, the right place. So two important people for us to listen to interact with them. I'm just moderating this process of today's webinar and take this message forward. And with the permission of Srinivas and Shantatmanji, we'll start the session. And later we'll try to transcribe the talks and publish a small booklet from the Institute of Human Excellence, so that would be a good message for the future. So we welcome all of you to this one. Once again, requesting all to mute your video. Dayachesi మీ వీడియోని అందరూ క్లోజ్ చేయండి, మ్యూట్ చేయండి. ఓన్లీ వినడం నెక్స్ట్ 30 minutes కాబట్టి మీ వీడియోస్ చూస్తుంటే డిస్టర్బ్ అవుతుంది స్పీకర్స్కి. మీ పేరు మాత్రం ఉంటే చాలు. మీ పిక్చర్ కావాలంటే పెట్టుకోండి వీలైతే. ప్లీజ్ మ్యూట్ యువర్ వీడియోస్ ఎవ్రీబడి. ఓకే, అండ్ రిక్వెస్ట్ ఆల్ ఆఫ్ యూ టు నాట్ టు send your message by chatting or appreciation. That also will be disturbing to the speaker. Last Sunday we had the problem, the distraction. So as long as they speak, you have to just listen, note down, and continue your understanding of the subject. So nearly 314 people are there online. Thank you for your participation. Appreciate your participation of all our devotees, volunteers, and youth from different parts of the country to participate. So I request humbly Swami Shantatmanji to take over and share his views and experience on this important subject, building a resurgent India through education. So Swami Shantatmanji Maharaj, Pranam. Maharaj, unmute your mic, Maharaj.
Om Namah Shri Itirajaya Vivekananda Surya Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamini Tapaharini. First of all, our sincere thanks to Swami Bodhamayananda ji for organizing this beautiful webinar. There's such a huge number participating in it. It's an extremely important topic, and time is very short. Although we can discuss this topic for days together, we have to finish in the next 15 minutes. Of course, then they say there'll be interactions and all that later on. See, first of all, first and foremost, the need to recognize that we need a resurgent India. The India has to be really rebuilt. We have to rediscover India. This recognition is the first step. Fortunately, the entire country seems to be aware of this dire need today. So hence we are on the right track. At least we have begun well. So that's good enough. But then, what is the solution? We need a resurgent India. There are so many advantages for India as a country today. We have a huge youth population. Perhaps the next 30 years, India has this tremendous advantage over China, Japan, and many other countries. And we really do see a lot of growth, a lot of initiatives, etc. in some parts of the country, no doubt. But what about the masses? The benefits, the development, the economic growth, etc., unless they percolate down to the level of the masses, it is absolutely meaningless. That's why somebody said GDP can be extremely misleading. Someone defined it as grossly deceptive parameter, because about say 40 or 50 billionaires and millions of people living below the poverty line, yet can give you a decent GDP number. So, it's extremely important. The masses have to be raised. We really have to take the entire country forward. Unless the benefits percolate down to the last citizen, probably India would continue to languish in the underdeveloped group. So what really is the solution? And whom should we really turn to? Perhaps Swami Vivekananda is the person we should really turn to. Many great personalities of a country have thought about this. In fact, in the year 1985, the late Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi constituted a committee to suggest a youth icon for the nation, and the committee came up with the unanimous choice of Swami Vivekananda as the youth icon. Long before that, in the year 1921, Mahatma Gandhi visited Belur Math and wrote in the visitor's book that he has gone through thoroughly the works of Swami Vivekananda, and after reading them, his love for our motherland grew thousandfold. You can imagine if this is the opinion of Mahatma Gandhi about Swami Vivekananda. You can imagine how important and how relevant Swami Vivekananda is for us. Not only that, his love and passion for our motherland was something unparalleled. No one could come anywhere near that if you really study Swami Vivekananda or try to understand him. Because he lived in all only 39 years and a few months. And the first, say 20, 22 years, 23 years spent in study, and also his own, the tremendous search for the truth or the ultimate. Then, his real active life, if you can take it, is from, say, 1893, the year he went to America, and 1902, the year he gave up his body in Mahasamadhi. So, in these 9 years, his one constant thought, one refrain, the one dominating idea in his mind was India, India, India. Although, he got huge, unparalleled success in America, even after his very first speech at the Parliament of Religions, perhaps that very night or maybe the next day or very close to that, he happened to be the guest of a very wealthy person, and he had been given a very comfortable room to stay. But he was lying on the floor weeping. In this country, there is so much affluence, so much people are wasting, but back home, people are dying for a morsel of food. So, day and night, he dreamt only of India, India's welfare, India's regeneration, how to bring back India's lost glory. One of his Western disciples, Sister Christine, wrote in her reminiscences, "The love for India gave birth in our hearts the first time we heard him pronounce that 5-letter word." She writes, "It's impossible to convey how in just a single word he could convey so much about India, its glorious past, its culture, its history, its traditions, its present degradation, its future glory, and so on and so forth." That was his passion for India. See, after the Mahasamadhi of his guru, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he went on a Bharat Parikrama in the year probably 1886. And the next 6 years or so, he was on a Bharat Parikrama. He traveled the length and breadth of our country on foot. He was appalled by the poverty, the illiteracy, and the superstition and so on. So he was a very keen student of history, and he knew that India was one of the countries with the highest number in terms of GDP, etc., was so well known for its wealth, its education, and so on. How it has come to such a sorry state. Then, then and there he wrote, and in several of his letters, etc., he again and again mentions that education, education is the panacea for all our evils. So, now we have understood the present degradation of India. We need a resurgent India. We need to work for that. That's clear. We cannot look for a better personality than Swami Vivekananda to guide us and to motivate us. So Swami Vivekananda is also extremely important. And the prescription, he said that education is so important. What type of education Swami Vivekananda talked about? Because, it's surprising, a lot of research is being done, is being conducted about India's past, our heritage, etc. People have come with stunning discoveries. See, at one point of time, some of the top universities of the world were located in India, like Nalanda, Takshila, etc. And the students from other countries would desperately try to get into these universities. They would come, stay here, prepare, and if by chance, if they get admission, they would study. That was the demand for universities. Following the Mughal and other invasions, all our universities were destroyed. So that's how we really lost much on education. But even then, even when the English took a survey of our country, in those initial period, there were lakhs of pathshalas all over the country. But slowly, it was English who nailed the last coffin, who hit the last nail on our coffin. They said that we need to give English education to the natives. The motive was actually twofold. One is to destroy our culture, take away from our Sanskrit and other other rich literature, culture, heritage, etc. And also give English education so that the Indians, the natives, would work as their deputies, as subordinates, as slaves, etc., and whatever way you might call it, so that that was the way they could communicate. See, they were in India. If they don't know the local language, how they could get everything done? So, in their own selfish interest, they introduced English education. They completely changed all the syllabus. They destroyed our culture, everything. Unfortunately, even now, we are continuing with the same English education, more or less with a little change in the syllabus. We are still continuing with the same even today. So this education is not going to take us anywhere. What is the education Swami Vivekananda talks about? He says education should instill in the student a tremendous sense of Atma Shraddha, self-belief. Probably, in education, if you can ensure this one idea, if every student who steps into a school goes out with Atma Shraddha or self-belief, I think our job is done. Because, today if you consider our population is 130 crores, maybe about 30 crores plus might be in schools, etc. Now we know, in spite of all the efforts of the government, we do not have enough schools. Even the schools that are running, many of them, lakhs and lakhs of schools don't have electricity, don't have toilet, don't have drinking water, don't have other facilities, they don't have classrooms. So all these are not going to improve overnight. So, Swamiji's idea is that education should instill a tremendous sense of Atma Shraddha or self-belief. He said education should instill character building, assimilation of ideas. Education should result in formation of character, strengthening of mind, and expansion of intellect. It should induce a spirit of philanthropy in the student. It also said that education should help the students stand on their own feet and also should enable them to solve the problems of life. I think, these words completely sum up what we need to do in terms of education. But today, the education that we give, which students receive, is absolutely inadequate in these areas. They are trying to only prepare careerists. Again, there's a rat race for engineering and medical and so on. But, that also we are losing out. Some 60 or 70,000 engineering colleges have been closed in the last few years. Very recently, in the railways or somewhere, there was an advertisement for a class 3 or class 4 post, and some 4 lakhs or so engineering or BTech graduates applied for that post. So you can understand the whole idea, even now the job security, aiming for a government job, a clerkship and so on. These were all, severely criticized and condemned by Swamiji even then. Somewhere he says, is there enough water in the Ganges to drown all you with your degrees and gowns and so on? So he says, education should contain all this. You should give all these to the students. So, that's why we see today, actually, virtually India is sitting on a volcano. Such a huge, powerful, vibrant, full of energy, such a large number of youths, and yet with absolutely no direction to go forward. Every year probably close to 1 to 1.5 crore of students come out of class 12. And hardly 10% of them get a chance to go for further education. So that means every year we are letting loose into the society some close to 1.5 crore of youths full of energy and vibrancy, power, but then with no hope for any future. Because they have not been told what exactly is true education, they think that unless they get a white collar job, some clerkship or somewhere, they are not fit for anything else. They have not been trained, they have not been given that Atma Shraddha, that self-belief. So obviously, that is why there is so much of violence, because it is because of unemployment, dissatisfaction, the youth are terribly frustrated. This is the reason for all that. So unless we really channelize the youth, their energies, etc., in the proper direction, the volcano is going to erupt and we are in for a huge disaster. So what is the way? We don't have time. The time bomb is ticking. We have just next 30 years at best. We need to do something very fast, very quick, something very concrete. So, instead of waiting for government, each and every government is sincere. They're trying in their own way to, revamp the education system, look at it, redesign the syllabus, etc. But all their efforts have not been fruitful so far. So the best is to go beyond the system and do something on our own. So it is in this direction, the Ramakrishna Mission, which has been working in the field of education for more than 100 years. So we thought that we can do something. I came to Delhi 13 years ago. In the initial years, it was impossible to even enter any education institution to give any ideas or any talks, etc. Because the teachers, the principals, etc. would be so busy. They say, you write a mail, you talk over phone, nobody would even let us in. And slowly, first, we got a program developed called Success Formula. That was a huge success. It was a 1-hour multimedia program. And that led to another program. And finally, as part of Swami Vivekananda's 150th birth anniversary celebrations, we could come up with a 3-year program called the Awakened Citizen Program. This program is completely based on Swami Vivekananda's educational ideas, and they are Swamiji's ideas. We discussed in detail about this program. We gave our inputs, but the entire architect, the creator of this program is Mr. Sri V. Srinivas and his wonderful team at Illumin. It is very good that he is also in the panel today. The entire program was designed and developed by them based on Swami Vivekananda's educational ideas, of course, with our inputs now and then regarding the original ideas. Entire design development is theirs. Now, what are we trying to give through this program? We are trying to give through this program the main idea which Swamiji talked about, the Atma Shraddha, the self-belief. Today, in a class of 50 or 60, there are a few toppers. They're always dominating. They are good in computers. They are good in science. They are good in languages. The majority, from the time they get into class 1 till the time they go out of the school at class 12, getting a pass mark, getting a pass certificate is easy. But they've been consistently told, you are no hopers, you have no hope, no future, you are laggards, you cannot compete with the brightest. So, from the class 1 onwards, constantly, instead of increasing or giving them their Atma Shraddha, their Shraddha is being hammered and destroyed at every possible opportunity. So, in a situation of unequal competition, if everyone tries to become good in computers, science, etc., obviously we are going to end nowhere. So, if they get this Atma Shraddha, first, if each and every student realizes, yes, I am no less, I may get 0 in computers, but I am very good in my own way. I can do very well in so many other things. So this first awakening this idea that I'm no less than the topper in spite of my not doing well in computers or in mathematics or languages, this one idea will completely change the ambience of the classroom. Now we know 90% of the students are totally disconnected with the school or the class because they know that every day they come and go, but they have nothing to gain. They know that they are nowhere. But once they get this Atma Shraddha, once they understand that within them also there are infinite possibilities which they can awaken and manifest, probably, they can also stand on their own. They can work out their own livelihood. This type of education, this type of idea is so essential. Today, this Awaken Citizen program is being run in more than 5,300 schools. We have trained more than 40,000 teachers. More than 9 lakh students have been impacted. The results are astounding. You can go to our website, theawakencitizen.org, and see for yourself the results, the videos, etc., which are being constantly posted. You can also visit our Facebook and our LinkedIn site, etc. Now, the idea is, through this program, we have been clearly able to give the students this idea of self-belief that whatever might be their academic performance, still they are extraordinary. They have other areas to explore, develop, and come out successful. That has been a great, great boon for the students. So, apart from the one thing is to spread this idea, not only through this program, to every other possible program, everywhere. We need to reach out to, see, today there are lakhs of schools. We have just hardly touched 5,300. There's not even, a drop in the ocean. But, any good beginning is good. Over the years, this program needs to be spread. Probably we have to cover more and more schools. Not only that, we are thinking even beyond this. Now, probably this is one where we are impacting the students. Along with that, is it possible that type of ideas that Swami Vivekananda talked about? See, Swamiji clearly realized the strength of India lies in the villages, in rural areas. That's, in fact, more than 60 to 70% of the population. They live only in rural areas. Along with that, can we, across the country, start some small initiatives like, Vivekananda circles or Vivekananda associations, something like that, whereby, first we start interacting with youth in the small way, gather all of them, talk to them, give them briefly about Swami Vivekananda's ideas, how they can stand on their own feet, what is the specialty, what is available in that village. Through that, can we promote, something like self-help groups, engaging the women, giving them employment opportunities, and, skill development in so many ways. As we are also thinking of experimenting on those lines. Start some small initiative in certain villages where we have access, and through that, supposing, if this succeeds, if that can be spread, because ultimately, on one hand, they should get the basic ideas of Vivekananda, where, if they learn, first of all, even to do anything in the village, in a small way, the youth, they need to sacrifice and serve at least to some extent. These two ideas, Swamiji said, the national ideals of India are sacrifice and service. Intensify them along those channels, the rest will be taken care of. So, supposing we gather a group of youths in a village area surrounding maybe about 40-50 villages, first of all, talking to them, inspiring them about Swamiji's ideas, and then, directly coming to the practical field, not just only giving lectures or ideas. These have been done for hundreds of years. Now, tell them clearly, what is the specialty in your area? What can be done? How the youth can be mobilized? How the women can be engaged? How some kind of, self-help groups can be created. All these ideas can be explored. On one hand, through education institutions, spreading the idea of Swamiji, instilling the students the idea of Atma Shraddha, and making them respond, making them realize that there are no pushovers. Each and every student has a future to look forward, something to gain, contribute, and also do well for himself. Along with this idea, suppose we directly, start invading the villages, start small such initiatives everywhere. Probably, if you work very hard, in the next 15-20 years, you will certainly be able to see a resurgence in India, because Swamiji's predictions have always come true. He clearly said that, I clearly see before me the future glory of India would far surpass our past glory. Let us believe in Swamiji's words. Let us put our shoulders together, work together, and really make Swamiji's dream come true. We'll all be part of a resilient India. Thank you.
Pranams to Swami Shantatmanji Maharaj, and thank him for his practical ideas. He is in the field of education, direct into the lion's mouth, into the lion's den, as they say, involving thousands and thousands, as you just now heard him telling about the Awakened Citizen Program. It is highly appreciated, and it has shown what you call the response, shown the effect on the minds of the people. Many teachers have told me, many principals have told me that it has created tremendous hope and tremendous faith in them, as he was insisting on that word. So we are fortunate to have Swami Shantatmanji online and listening to him, or pranams to him. He has said that how the Awakened Citizen Program is creating wonders in the CBSE schools, in the Kendriya Vidyalaya schools, in the Navodaya schools, all over the country, not just in and around Delhi, but everywhere. So Atma Shraddha is what Swami Vivekananda insisted, and we should work on this. As he was talking about the implementation aspect, theories are there, principles are there, but we need to implement them. We need to work on them. Cement may be there, the sand may be there, the stones may be there, the bricks may be there, but we need a mason. We need somebody to put them all in perspective, put them all in the right place, mix them, make a good concrete on a good foundation. Let us build up a new nation, an emerging nation, a resurgent nation. These are not just grammars, these are not just flowery words, but to be worked out by all of us. That is why this webinar, that is why this effort to bring all young minds and all educated people and others to work on this. Vivekananda had mentioned once in the 7th volume of the Complete Works, he had said, "My hope and faith rest in men like you. Understand my words in their true spirit and apply yourselves to work in their light." I repeat again, apply yourselves to work in their light. I have given you advice enough. Now put at least something in practice. Let the world see that your listening to me has been a success. So put something in practice. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya prayate mahato bhayat. Some people say, oh, if Vivekananda would come today, our country would become better. Does it mean Vivekananda is not there today? Vivekananda himself said, I am a voice without a form. What I have left behind will be useful for 1,500 years, 15 centuries. So through the SAP program or through the Vivekananda Institute of Human Excellence and others, offline campuses like the Kendra, Vivekananda Kendra, and so many other wonderful people. Please switch off your mic, mute your mic, please, everybody. Causes disturbance otherwise. So this is what we have heard. We have to put our minds. Time will be there for interaction with Swami Shantatmanji also. Before that interaction, we'll listen to another wonderful person by name Sri V. Srinivas, Venkatramana Srinivas from Mumbai. Srinivas, namaste. Thank you. You can unmute your mic. Yes, Srinivas, thank you. Namaste. And you are in the hotbed of the pandemic, Maharashtra, Bombay. And with your illumined knowledge experience, you can introduce yourself a little, and then you can speak 15-20 minutes, and followed by interaction with Shantatmanji and yours.
Yes.
So over to Sri V. Srinivas for the next part of the topic, building a resurgent India through education. Sri V. Srinivas. Namaste.
Yeah, namaste. First of all, my pranams to Swami Shantatmanji and to Swami Bodhamayanji. And thank you, Bodhamayanji Maharaj, for inviting me and for this talk. It's a pleasure to be here. As Maharaj suggested, I'll just spend a few minutes introducing myself. So I'm an engineer from IIT, and then I am Ahmedabad. And I set up my own company, which I sold in the first, after about 7 years. That means at the age of 30, I sold my company and then set up Illumin. So my goal of Illumin was, when I started, was to recognize, was based on a recognition that there is a big gap between what we know and what we live. So as a country, as individuals, as a community, we know even very great truths. We know what are the right things to be done. But the challenge really lies in translating that or converting that into living effectively or living very differently. Over the past couple of decades, we have worked on several projects and worked on building programs. As Shantatmaji Maharaj pointed out, we developed the program for ACP, and we also have something called a contributor program, which is running in 2 states of India, in Gujarat and now in Orissa, and is in IIT Delhi, IIT Madras, and several other places. We also work with Chennai Math for the Vedanta Kesari. We're working with VIHE on several ideas, and so on and so forth. Besides which, we also work with several large corporations, again with the idea of taking, the ideas of enlightened citizenship proposed by Swami Ranganathananda and based on Swami Vivekananda's ideas. And how do you embed that into corporate world? And so we have worked with very large corporations like Tata Consultancy Services, Shapurji Group, Asian Paints, Birla Group. Now we are working with the Tatas. So almost all the top groups in the country we are working with, Asian Paints, several of them. So this is a little bit of a background. So for about 20 years, we've been thinking about this problem of education. And we are directly involved in implementing programs in several places. And we are also involved in designing programs and helping and being enablers to help others implement in their areas. So whatever I speak comes from this experience. Now, having said that, let me get down to the topic proper. Now, let me start with a reference to a recent news article. So the article, there is a news article recently where Tim Cook, who is the CEO of Apple Computers, he was asked that why do you get all your production done in China? And Tim Cook's answer was that people are under the impression that we go to China because China is a low-cost labor, and that is the myth that everybody has. But China has ceased to be the low-cost manufacturing destination in high technology for almost 5-6 years or almost a decade now. The reason we go to China and we do so much of our production there is because China has a tremendous depth of technical manpower. This is the terminology that he uses. Tremendous depth of technical manpower. He says that we have, if in the US I can get in a particular area, especially let us say vocational kind of work which are there, or which requires combining technical knowledge with working on tools or whatever it is. If in the US I can get 10 people into the room, in China I can fill a football field with the number of skilled people in that area. He gives the example of rare earths, where he says if you take a field like metals and rare earths, I have got 80-90% of the world's best skilled labor sitting in China for me in that area. Now this is a wake-up call for India. We are under the impression that this is all about a cost game, but it doesn't seem to be a cost game at all. The challenge is that do we have the technical depth? We produce every year lakhs of engineers, but how many of them carry the technical depth needed to do high technology work? A small proportion. I'm not saying that it is not there, but a very small proportion. If you take our software companies, they are desperately trying to move up the value chain so that the kind of value that you create, what does that mean? It means that the value you create, the prices that you can charge for a person's time should go up. But if you are trying to do that, then the issue that is there is that the person should be able to produce or contribute things which are of a much higher level. He cannot be producing very low end stuff. Now, the question that we are asking is that we have lakhs of engineers, but we don't have the kind of technical depth which is needed. Where have we gone wrong there? Why is it that our engineering colleges are producing engineers who do not have depth of engineering expertise? And this is not true of engineering alone. If you take social sciences, it's not as if our MAs are actually, many of them, how many of our MAs are world class? How many of our BScs are working in science, pure sciences which are there? So in all these areas, you find that people are educated, but there is no depth in the entire knowledge that they have. This problem is not just at the higher education level. You go one level before that, you go right up to the school level and you look at it, we face the same issue, that there is an excessive focus on memorization, there is an excessive focus on getting marks, there's an excessive focus on coming first, on just regurgitating what the teacher says, and there is no conceptual understanding or no depth of appreciation of things except in a small group of people. Even in an exam like IIT, which was there, which earlier used to demand technical, a depth of understanding, now people have made it into have converted the training program such that you can almost routinize it and create what you can call heuristics, which are simple rules of thumb for solving problems. Now, this is the issue. So you find that in our entire education system, the first big challenge that we are facing is that there is no culture of what I call engagement with knowledge. There is acquisition of knowledge. There is acquisition of concepts. We can even understand the conceptual ideas, but going deep, engaging with it, understanding it, applicationizing it, digesting it is not there. There is no reflection or going and, in short, just imagine one is to have access to food, but another thing is digesting the food. If you have access to food, you can eat nutritious food, but if you don't digest it, you will not become strong. So there is a gap between eating nutritious food and becoming strong. And the gap or the link between eating digestive food and becoming strong is a strong digestive system. Just like for food, you need a digestive system, you need a digestive system for knowledge. Our first big challenge is that our educational system focuses on giving food. Let us say it is nutritious food. Maybe we have the right curricula, we have all of those things, but we do not focus on building the digestive system, the knowledge digestive system that our people need to transform that knowledge, to assimilate it, to convert it and applicationize it so that the people become extremely strong. So that is our first big challenge that we are facing. The problem of not having strong knowledge digestive systems in our young people and in our youth. And therefore, we do not have the technical competitiveness or the technical depth that you need in large numbers if you want to bring. You can create a few thousand IITians, you can create a few thousand people from top places out of a country of several, of a billion people, that's okay. And many of them will also rush off to America and to other places. But if you want to make this country resurgent, then you have to have it in extremely large numbers, which means it has to become an intrinsic part of our education system. That is our first challenge. We have a second challenge. To understand this second challenge, let us understand some statistics. Again, let me share with you. Do you know that in terms of productivity, we are 103rd or 107th in the world? We keep moving in that range. We are, as a country, we are the second largest in manpower in terms of number of people, but in terms of productivity, we are very low. In fact, what we find is that the per capita creation of per capita productivity in India is 1/3 that of China, for example. 1/3. That means that there is a second very, very big problem that we are facing, which is the problem of what I call work ethic. There is something which is there, which is that there is a challenge of creating a strong work ethic in India. Now, what do I mean by work ethic? Now, work ethic can reveal itself. Let us first see the symptoms of a work ethic. Work ethic reflects itself in productivity. It reflects itself in how you use your time. Are you using your time efficiently, or you are frittering it away? Because that's also a productivity. That's also about work ethic. It is also about the work methods that you use. Are you thinking about and working in the right way? Are you doing things with the right techniques, with the right methodologies? Are you conscious about, and the other thing is, are you conscious about quality? Are you chalta hai, or are you conscious about quality and how to deliver everything? That is the second. So this is all, if you do have problems in these areas, where people are not using their time well, where people are not being productive from morning to evening, where they are frittering away time in talk, where they are spending time, where they are not clear about how things are need to be done, they rush back to their bosses for every small help that they require. Any small thing they need, they go back and ask for help. All these are symptoms of poor productivity. Now, this poor productivity, poor work ethic, how are we going to build? Now, to understand that, let me share with you about a person who first coined this concept of work ethic. And this person was someone called, I was a philosopher and sociologist, more than a philosopher also, called Max Weber. He wrote a book called The Spirit of Capitalism, where he wrote about something called, he was trying to examine why is it that Northern Europe is so successful. He asked that what is it that makes Northern Europe more productive, and they are able to dominate in so many areas. He was studying at that time. And when he studied it, he found that the main reason was that they had something which he called the Protestant work ethic, which was connected to the religion of Protestant religion itself, where he said where it valued thrift, where it valued hard work, where it valued making money, trying to create value out of what you are working. All these things, whatever they are talking about, was a whole set of qualities which he identified as a work ethic. It became a very famous work, and it was, it was almost seen as a revolution in understanding of why some economies seem to succeed. And they found that if you compare it with Southern Europe, like for example, if you compare it with Spain and all that, they found that the differences were coming largely because of these kinds of areas. If you take India, for example, our religion also has a profound philosophy. We have the profound philosophy of Bhagavad Gita with us, which talks about giving us a philosophy of why we should work. It gives us a framework for how we should think about our life, about how our work connects to our life. Swami Vivekananda spoke on several occasions so that he was able to point us in the direction of a profound philosophy of how we are able to work very, very differently, and how work itself can become a means not only for producing things, but also for as a means for our own, not only evolution as people, but for our salvation, or for our highest realization of the highest truth, whichever way we look at it. Now, all this we have, but we have not digested it as a country. Similarly, we understand work practices. We understand that we need to have trust, we need to operate with trustworthiness. We need to have a mechanism where we are collaborating effectively. We know that all these are work practices, but how do we build it? How do we build these work practices? All these are connected with the problem of work ethic. So this is the second big challenge that we are facing. How do you develop a work ethic on a large scale basis in the country? And in fact, what we find is that because we are running a program in this area called Contributor Program, and as I mentioned to you earlier, we are running it with students, and we are also run versions of it with 2 lakh people in State Bank as part of their our program called Citizen SBI. We have run it with large numbers, and we find that it is definitely a huge gap which people are experiencing. That how are we going to be able to build a strong work ethic which allows us to utilize whatever time, space, skills we already have. Our first problem was a separate problem of how do I engage with knowledge so that I can develop myself with and grow even deeper and think better, etc. But assuming I don't do all that, even with what I have, am I utilizing it fully? Then that is the problem of the work ethic. So that is the second big challenge that we are facing in a resurgent India. What is the use of having, one of the youngest demographics in the, having a wonderful demographic structure where you have youth across the country? What is the use of having 1 billion people if that work is not harnessed and where that work ethic is not created so that whatever they have, their capacity that they have is not transformed into a resurgent India. So that is our second very, very big challenge that we are facing. And there is a third, which is in a sense a deeper challenge than the work ethic challenge, and which is deeper than the challenge of what I can call knowledge ethic, if I were to call it. So we have a knowledge ethic problem, we have a work ethic problem. But the third very, very big issue is something which is very strange and fundamental to our country, which what I find is that this challenge is what I can call a widespread gap between who am I and what I do. Now this widespread, this dichotomy, many years back, I read a book about by R.K. Narayan. A book by R.K. Narayan, which was very famous book. R.K. Narayan, he wrote Malgudi Days and, several such books, and R.K. Lakshman's elder brother. And he wrote about how his father would be, when he would go to the court, etc., he would be dressed up in a particular way and he would do things. And when he would come home, he would change into Indian clothes immediately. And what we find is that he then described something which was actually a dichotomy between Indian life and what we see as our professional or work life. We see it in schools to start with. When young children go to school, in school they are talking in English, they have a different norms, everything. When they come home, they have a different language, different mother tongue, different operating style. This extends. You find similarly a dichotomy between my home life and my work life. Work life, they talk in like a multinational corporation people, but when they come home, they are behaving totally differently. So you find a gap. You find that gap which between our religious lives and our day-to-day life. You see a dichotomy there. You see a dichotomy between our intense love for our family and our callousness with respect to our country. So you see these dichotomies which are there tremendously in our country, in our people, in all levels, in our dichotomy between work and home, between work and educational places, and all these areas. Now, this whole dichotomy which is there, it leads to a profound disengagement. It leads to a disengagement with lots of formal work in very many ways. And what we find is that this disengagement which is there has to be turned around. What is the answer to that? The answer to that is something which, it's very strange, and I comment on it. The more I read Swami Ranganathananda's works or talked about his talks given in Hyderabad 40 years ago, the more I find them even more relevant in terms of their precise diagnostics today. And I'm sure that what it meant was, since he carried Swamiji's ideas, I find the same thing, those same ideas being translated, more and more clearly on the ground. And that is what I found. So really deep within that is a challenge of what I can call of being flowing into function. How does people learn to engage fully with life? How do people learn, in other words, to unleash their entire human potential? Because unless people get into the habit of saying that every event, every situation is an opportunity for me to unleash my potential, unleash all that is within me. That connecting what what Maharaj spoke about, Shantatmaji spoke about the Atma Shraddha, that Atma Shraddha grows in a dynamic when you unleash yourself in every situation, where you give your best into every situation, where you try your best, and after having tried your best, you grow and learn out of that whole thing. So you get into a dynamic of personal growth by unleashing and building your self-esteem, pushing yourself to the maximum which is there, which means it is about intense positive engagement with life. So the third very, very big issue which is there, which I may call it, is that when there is a culture of intense positive engagement, not a culture of detachment and separation from our school teacher, separation from the classroom, just sit there, finish your work transactionally and go away. So breaking that transactional and hands-off approach, we behave like that with workplaces. We behave like that. Therefore, one of companies face the problem of poor engagement in the workplaces. Countries facing the problem of poor engagement by our people. We are only engaged with our own family. So everywhere there's a problem of poor engagement. So how to unleash this engagement of people across the whole country, which means how to help people manifest their full potential in every situation, is our third big challenge. So if I were to kind of take all these thoughts which are there and kind of summarize it for you, I would say that these are three big challenges that I thought I should place before you if we want to address the problem of the resurgent India. The first problem is, how are we going to create a knowledge ethic? Number two, how are we going to create a work ethic? And number three is, how are we going to create what I can call a culture of positive engagement, a culture of intense positive engagement in every single action. These are the three big building blocks that I have identified, that I have managed to see out of all these years of working with several corporations and education. If I were to start small, and I know that all big things start small, I would say that if you are a student, the first thing to do is not just to focus on the subject and marks, but to also worry about how to study. Two things: what to study, school teachers will tell us, but how to study is in our own hands. So if every student focuses on how to study better, how to engage with the subject better, that itself is step one. It's a very small step, but from there a new cycle will start. Similarly, if a person is in a workplace, if I'm looking at it, it is not about Coursera. It's not about going and looking at international courses. It's about learning how to utilize that knowledge in the best possible way and to assimilate it and to utilize it in the best way in my life. All these are the first set of questions to be asked. We can attend a program like this, but how do I utilize this program to transform my life? If the focus becomes there, how do I absorb maximum from this program? That is our first building block of this whole thing. The second building block is, stop worrying about placement alone. Placements will come, jobs have to come, but also focus on how to work. Focus on, if whatever job is given, how do I learn how to work better? How do I work efficiently? How do I work effectively? How do I make the outcomes happen? How do I make things happen? So it's a second problem, is not only about placements, but worrying about how to work. And the third point is that it is not about access to experiences. You have access to webinars, you have access to Netflix, you have access to movies, you have got access to hundreds of things. So it's not about experiences, the number of experiences that I go through, but it is actually about the quality of engagement with one's life that one looks at. So these three things are actually the building blocks of a resurgent India. We have to stop focusing on what and start focusing on how our people work, how our people think and study, and how our people engage with whatever is in front of them, with in their friends, family, in their day-to-day life. I think if we solve these three problems, then our journey to a resurgent India will start. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Srinivas. Namaste to you. Very well said. I should not say it. Very deep and step by step, you have analyzed the situation, and with your experience of dealing with education syllabus and putting it in the right perspective, I think we'll take the building blocks into engagement and try to see how best we can work for the resurgent India through schools, through colleges, through Human Excellence Institute,
Yes.
through all of us to put together.
Yes, ma'am.
So we shall now request our couple of people just to respond to what Shantatmanji said and what Srinivas said. I'll call upon now Mrs. Pratyusha Sharma, who is working with Cognizant and who is connected with Human Excellence Institute and with our from our childhood. So she is the senior vice coordinator, director of the, should I say, a very important person in the cyber city, Cyberabad of Hyderabad. So I requested her to share her opinions because she's in the field, seeing the problems of youth, of education, of women. And she's working with the police commissioners and with her own IT people of 40,000 Cognizant. So I request Pratyusha to just share her feelings about today and how we can take it forward. Ms. Pratyusha.
Wonderful, Swamiji. Thanks a lot. Namaste. And thank you to Srinivas Garu and Guru Swamiji for a wonderful, very impactful 30 minutes of shaking up how we need to regrow India, right? I believe that we need to have more of these sessions. I know it is just awareness, but again, getting into depth and knowledge. So I'll just take my discussion in two parts. One is being a HR person and understanding how the industry operates. I think clearly, as Srinivas Garu said, work ethics, knowledge ethics, as well as the dichotomy is huge. And there is a big problem there. And when you were saying there were a couple of cases right now with job layoffs, with all these performance appraisals going on, people are stuck in accepting and believing in themselves. I think that belief is not there. And that's where Vivekananda Institute of Human Excellence bringing this to bring the belief in the youth. And today's youth, we really believe that they are very high in decision making. They are great in goal orientation. If you ask the millennials, I think we all say that they can answer much better than any one of us. And again, the dichotomy when they come to work and come to the industry, it is actually they are stuck between those values, morals, and cultures, and it gets stuck. And I think there is a lot of opportunity to do more in being able to building all of this and taking it to a different level. And as I was saying, we keep doing those year one learnings, lot of companies, we invest in lot of individuals, but the application and engagement is clearly missing. There is a lot of training everybody does, the company does. We only make it so transaction, but the application and depth of engagement is something, again, I think it's an opportunity for all of us to rebuild that education system in the industry. And I'm sure that is the potential which already youth have. How do we get them back, right? The other part which Swamiji was saying, I work with the Telangana police and the Cyberabad police to drive women's safety, right? And I see the people who join in the industry between 0 to 6 months to 1 year. They come from small towns, small places. People are gaining their engineering grads. They're going out to study. When they come back, there's a huge gap when they come and start working and gaining that financial independence. They earn that 10,000, 15,000 rupees. They start thinking they've arrived. Suddenly they lose all their moral values. And it becomes a huge gap in their kind of thinking, the way they're getting into extramarital affairs, the way the crimes are increasing, the cyber crimes are increasing. I deal with a lot of these cases on a day-to-day basis, and I see how the police and the law are trying to work with it. Huge, huge gap again. And Srinivas Garu, the dichotomy is just increasing by the day. And thanks for bringing in the Illumin knowledge to whatever amount of people, but yes, it's not enough. And as a suggestion, I would like to take that I think creating these Illumin knowledge circles will keep on increasing the more and more circles. So I know Sheryl Sandberg has started this Lean In Circle, right? Where women have that network and the opportunity. Today, I think, if I'm right, there are more than about 4,000 linen circles and corporates in this. I think there's a huge opportunity to create these knowledge circles in building that engagement, building that Illumin knowledge, and giving it back and deeply engaging with them. And we see that in the industry, in the youth. So just three things which I would like to give back or take back is, please don't forget your values, very, very high. And the best part is, there are your values, and every company starts defining their values. And they're not very different. It is the same. Some people call it integrity, some people call it passion. So each one actually defines it differently. But I think that core values, what you bring, is something which you should not forget, and think that the industry thinks differently and you think differently. And that's something, don't forget your values. Clearly, I've been attending through the Vivekananda Institute of Human Excellence as a student, the Upanishads class, the Bhagavad Gita classes, some of them, and keep increasing my knowledge. I think as we are increasing our knowledge, don't forget the culture. And I think even Swamiji mentioned the culture, the Nalanda University, the education is so strong. I think if we do a lot of research in depth, understand what it is, we can give back a lot of Vidya Danam, what Swamiji said, and I'm giving that back to you. I think the values, the culture, and finally the engagement, application, the depth of knowledge. We do a lot of soft skills trainings, behavioral trainings, and the whole industry does, right? And I'm sure lots of people are from various aspects. They have got trained at some point of time, either the Vivekananda Institute or through the industry. And I've seen we get trained and we go back. There are people who come into the classroom, start getting trained, and they say, wow, it's an awesome class. And then they go back to their transactional work. They start having a fight. They'll start having a conflict. You come with conflict resolution as a program, and it just goes back. I think trying to put that as practice, and deeply engaging with that conflict resolution as a problem can resolve so many conflicts. And I think that needs a lot of time. It needs a lot of practice. And that's something which all of us can really take back and build a better India with most of these thoughts, right? Values, culture, as well as application of that knowledge into depth. I think that practice will make a huge difference. And I believe, and I would like to really take these back and ensure that all of you all are taking it back. With that, Swamiji, I'll hand over to the other participants.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for
so
your
much.
valuable inputs. Your experience matters, and how we'll request Srinivas and Shantatma to respond later as part of our discussion. So there is one of our participants has raised his hand. Srinivas Babu, you want to ask a question, or Mr. Srinivas Babu? Please unmute your mic.
Namaste, sir.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, please continue. You're audible.
Thank you very much for inspiring talks of the two speakers, sir. Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes, continue. Introduce yourself and continue.
The present generation, once upon a time, the daughters and sons are supposed to listen to the parents and elders and some people like that. The generation is not supposed to listen to the parents and accept the things and whatever may be the guidance given by the parents. That is the first point. Second point, they got success. They got success in getting marks, all these things, and they spend a lot of time with mobile phones and involved in other activities. They don't know what is the purpose and what is the
You can
and you have conducted this webinar, and how many of the participants can carry the message and implement the things Pratisha madam said, and we have to fight with the conflict or something like that. So please suggest something for the sake of the parents and for the sake of the present generation, and we have to pave a path and provide a good career and bright career to the present generations, sir.
Swamiji, any suggestions for parents and other responsible people?
Yes, you see, in fact, our the chief coordinator program is Dr. Anuradha Balram. She has a double master's and a doctorate. She was additional secretary to the government of India. She resigned her job and joined us as a full-time dedicated volunteer. In fact, she has sent me a message saying the role of parents has not been touched. Please talk about it. Actually, parents have a very important role to play. See, why our children are not listening? Children will learn from the parents' life. Are our parents like that? If you're different and then if you want our children to do something, see, we cannot, the children, we are also trying to run workshops for parents. We are now developing that. Most of the parents think that children are, to work out their own desire, their own wishes, whatever they want to achieve, that is not the way. So now, with so much of access to information, etc., parents have to be extremely, they should be caring, they should know how to handle children, give a lot of time to them, listen to them, then it is possible. If parents themselves are imbued in those values and from a young age they have been guiding the children like that, it's possible. Suddenly you wake up one day and say that they are not that way, then it's too late to make any correction. So if there are family values, see, for example, what was the Indian system? Earlier there used to be large families. Children would grow spontaneously with those values. No one need to tell them separately because it was embedded in the family itself. Today in micro and mini micro families, husband living for himself, wife living for himself, father and mother are like that. How do you expect children to learn from them? So if there are family values, the parents live that life, it's possible that children will learn from them. Much more than that, parents have to spend a lot of time, try to understand the children, give them space. So we have got a beautiful program called Arise. Acceptance. Children, parents should accept what they want to do. And then there is sharing, and then there is empowering the children. All those things we are reflection, empowering the children, involving the children, sharing with them. Unless these are all brought into that, children will not respond. Now there is children are definitely intelligent, they understand. This is very, very important. That is how we can guide the parents have a role to play. See, one small thing about, the knowledge gap, Srinivas spoke very wonderfully. During the German, when the Germans were killing the Jews at the Holocaust, one Austrian doctor, he wrote a wonderful book on psychology later. It's called Viktor Haeckel or someone. He wrote, it's a very small book. He wrote beautifully. See, if you know the why of things, the how would get solved much better. See, today there is about how to engage, how there is knowledge gap. These are all extremely important. But then, even fundamental to that is the why. Why at all we should do it. So this why is so important. So why is also one more aspect we need to focus on. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll take one more question, maybe a repetition.
Yeah.
Akhil, NSS volunteer, says, what are the basic initiatives to be taken to make students have self-belief in educational institutions?
Yeah. What the initiatives for students to have self-belief?
Yeah.
In some way or other, these ideas, Swami Vivekananda's ideas. See, how do you have this Atma Shraddha? Give those ideas to them, bring them, make them participate, engage them in some small activities whereby their Atma Shraddha is really brought out. You see, one thing is to accept. See, for example, in the program, we have a lot of explorations, role models, discussions. Through that, they largely understand. When you run a program where it is full of such explorations, where there is an opportunity for the children to discuss and learn, they do it. But if you don't have access to such programs, thing is, take Swamiji's ideas, discuss with them, and then probably try to work it out in a small way. Give them some opportunities whereby their Atma Shraddha would come out. Let them make some mistake. They may do something wrong, doesn't matter. So that is how they would do it. So if parents take it up on an individual level, it's also possible. They can awaken the Atma Shraddha in children. Otherwise, through such programs where there is a lot of scope for the children to discuss. See, the best learning happens through peer learning. In our program, the best part of it, the children learn largely through peer learning among themselves. If you thrust it from above, they are not going to learn. So that way, much more than parents, it is through peer learning, it is largely possible. Somehow that has got to be given access to the children.
Now, next question, I request Srinivas to answer. The government is introducing online education throughout the country from the next academic year. this would further degrade the skill sets of our students. What is the alternative now? Online education, is it a good sign? Is it just a temporary arrangement? How do you look at things?
What we find is that actually online education is good in one way, and the way it is good is that it at least, and see, there are two parts to an educational process. One part of the educational process has to do with acquisition of ideas and concepts and so on and so forth. In our view, what was being done in classrooms can be better done online and finished off, because people can acquire those same concepts and ideas, etc., even online and be done with it. I think that where offline is important is when you are trying to translate that into practice, where you are translating that into trying it out, where you are working and trying to design new answers and try to applicationize it. So I think the good news out of this online education is that whatever so far we were doing in classrooms, 85–90% is well done online and it can be done with. But whatever is left in the classroom has to be, it forces our teachers to think differently and expand the scope of the classroom and make it one where there is far more involvement of the people, far more engagement, far more design orientation, far more thinking orientation, practice orientation. All that has to come in the classroom. That's how it gets split up.
So request, somebody has raised a hand. There's no name, but the mobile number Galaxy M30. Who is that, please? Galaxy M30. Can you come online and ask your question? Somebody has raised the hand. Quickly, we'll have less time. Galaxy M30, or can we go to Apparao, ex-RIMSE student? RIMSE is our institution in Mysore, a residential B.Ed college. Apparao ji, want to say something? Apparao ji is there. Okay, next, Mr. Apparao ji, want to say something?
Swamiji? Yes, Swamiji. Yes, Swamiji.
Please continue.
Swamiji?
Yes.
Swamiji, very good knowledge from this webinar. And also Swamiji said Atma Shraddha is missing in everywhere, in every institutions. It is missing in work officials, employees, and students also, because I am ex-student of RIMSE. When I was joined in RIMSE, I don't hear the service to man is service to God, that logo. After joining RIMSE, I got the importance of that. And so Atma Shraddha is not, it is lagging because of the culture and values and service importance, Tyagam Seva. That is why the Atma Shraddha is not having Swamiji in everybody. And because we got the certificate from B.Ed and culture, B.Ed with less cost, only 4,500 rupees with giving residents food and all these things. That is why I got the importance of service. So like that nowadays, all the institutions are collecting lakhs of rupees, private education. So there is no importance to giving service motto to the children. And they are coming out and they are not, it's Atma Shraddha is lagging in them. So in my view, Swamiji, the collecting of so much money in educational institutions and giving education is one of the reason for getting lagging of this culture and all these service activities in one mind, Swamiji.
Okay.
Should I answer briefly?
You can.
See, the point is, Mr. Apparao,
Sir.
the real problem is with people like us. Those who have been exposed to the ideas of Swami Vivekananda. If each one of us can carry it at least to 100 people, the country would be changed.
Yes,
Post
Swamiji.
RIMSE, to how many people have you carried the ideas of Swami Vivekananda? See, that is important. See, we make, see, people charging, etc., etc., these are all much secondary. See, today, every person who has been inspired by Swami Vivekananda, I would really first blame we at the mission itself. We have not really extensively spread the ideas of Swami Vivekananda. If you have done that, today our country would be far different. So each one of us have had access to Swami Vivekananda's idea. That should be our life's mission, to spread it. And that is how that's how the things would change, and that is how people would start to learn about Atma Shraddha, about Swamiji, etc. Thank you.
Really, Swamiji, we learnt free yoga classes in RIMS, Swamiji. By learning that, I am running free voluntary classes since 25 years after coming RIMS, Swamiji, in Sattupalli. And we are doing service activities. And last time also, our RIMS batch in Bangalore, we contributed 13,000 rupees for building our Swami Vivekananda statue at the railway station, Bangalore, Swamiji.
Very good.
To the ashram.
We'll take this message in Telangana more seriously. Apparao garu.
Yeah. Maharaj, I'd like to add one.
Yes, Srinivas, please.
See, this question of Atma Shraddha, the Swami Vivekananda says that you take 5 ideas and digest it wholly, and you will have more knowledge than an entire library.
Yeah.
So actually the issue that we are facing is not just access to ideas, because access we are giving. The question is also that we take those ideas and digest them wholly so that they become who we are. So that is actually the real problem that that Mr. Apparao you are facing, because the question is that you want youth, you want in workplaces. If they digest these ideas, even 1 or 2 of the ideas, and I'm sure there has been no dearth of ideas which they have received also, and they are getting also more ideas. But if they can digest it, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. We have a professor from Manipal University, Dola Saha. She would like to, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, very famous and very prestigious. You want to say something or ask a question, ma'am?
Yeah, Pranam Swamiji. It was a very engaging discussion, and I really would say that there is lots from it.
Others, please please mute your mic.
There are lots to take from it. So I was just adding that, especially whatever concepts that we discussed today is so much relevant in the professional education, be it the government or be it the professional institutes. Institute like ours, we have tried introducing modules on especially on professional values, and because as somebody was mentioning that there is a concern that professional institutions are charging more and they are not probably contributing as much to the values, basically the professional values that they are imparting. But it's not so. Many institutes like ours are actually, they have introduced modules so that these can be taken further. We can emphasize on the professional values, not only the educational work, but also values. And as we celebrate National Youth Days and all, we try to ask our students to delve deep into the teachings and learnings of Swami Vivekananda, so that they get introduced to his teachings. And these are some of the things I just wanted to add. And it was a pleasure listening to all of you. So, namaskar. Thank you so much that I could listen to all of you.
Thank you so much. Srinivas, there's a question for you. Nowadays, every engineering student is coming to IT3, whichever the branch is studied. Is it a good sign or a bad sign for the country? What's your take on this?
No, actually, the problem is not whether the student has come to engineering or not. The problem is that what he does after coming there, right?
Yeah.
So if in the 4 years it is used well, then it is a great asset to the country, because we need all the manpower that we want in all these areas. But if it is utilized fully, so the real issue again is in utilization of the 4 years in engineering rather than whether you have attended it or not. In I mean by IT, you mean you're talking about engineering college or you're talking about IT industry?
Yeah, IT. They're going to the career of IT.
Oh, they're talking about career. I think that there is nothing wrong, I feel, with going to IT career or any other career, because I think that there are, as the country's opportunities open up there, what might be the issue is that if they believe that they are good in other areas and they are going to IT simply because they have, they have forced themselves, or because they are following the herd and not trying to figure out what they can do best, then there is a problem. So the issue really is not about IT, but the issue is about trying to discover your own possibilities, like the human possibility, the program, Awakened Citizen program and others do. And how do you discover them? And after discovering them, do you have the courage to pursue them? So that is the real issue there.
And we have just one more the opinion. One of our volunteers is a PG student as well as a teacher also now. I request her to come online and share her experience or feelings about today, and then we'll conclude for this session. Ms. Charita, please.
My namaskars to revered Maharaj. Sir, thank you very much for the two wonderful sessions on the building resurgent India through education. So, I am Charita. I have finished my post-graduation, worked as a teacher for 2 years, and then now I've taken a break to work on my PhD. So, firstly, I would, today's session, I have related it very much with my personal life, because I entered VIHE after my 10th class, that is after Balvikas this thing. So Balvikas is from 4th to 10th, and after that I have entered VIHE. And my experience before entering VIHE is what Swamiji told first, that absence of Atma Shraddha. So that I experienced immediately when I started as a student in VIHE. So that I could very much relate, which is absent in the present school education, which is being done. And secondly, when I have passed that student age, what I would understand, I used to understand, and I still understand, that among the youth there is faith, there is less faith in our culture and less faith in our scriptures, and there is some procrastination to go back to our scriptures and read. So as Swamiji told, that Atma Shraddha, if it is built right from the childhood, we would automatically incline towards the knowledge which is more practical than that is just academical or career oriented. So as it was told, we have to have, all the youth have to have that direction. So once we have that direction and discrimination, then we would definitely go. And thirdly, one of the most important takeaways of this session is that many of us always think that, whenever we get inspired listening to these sessions, whenever we in VIHE as volunteers take these sessions and all, we get very inspired, and many a times to many of us it gets diluted. So how do we, it is our responsibility to keep up the spirit, it is our responsibility to generate interest, to sincerely practice and read the scriptures, read the literature of Swamiji, teachings of Swamiji. Then definitely we would, as sir told, we would definitely reduce that gap between the work life and the life which we have at home, or that gap will definitely reduce, as Swamiji told, that take up one idea and live that idea. And so this is what first important thing is, that all of us should first transform ourselves, focus on the transformation of ourselves, and try to spread this message with faith and obedience. So thank you very much, Swamiji. Pranams.
Thank you, Charita. There's a doctor, medical student who wants to put a question. Bandi Naveen Kumar, a student of MNR Medical College. He has got a question. Naveen Kumar ji, please ask your question. Naveen Kumar ji. Are you there, Mr. Naveen Kumar? Bandi Naveen Kumar, you have said there's a question. Okay, can we take Basavalingam? D. Basavalingam.
Hello.
Naveen Kumar, please.
Excuse me. Yes, sir. Sir. Hello.
Please
Yes,
answer.
please continue.
Sir, I have a doubt that we are discussing about the online education system about that. But when after studying the inter and
Continue.
knowledge, I have a doubt that the main fault is for.
Please type your question. That will be convenient. You can save time.
Okay, sir.
Mr. Basolingam, please.
Pranam Swamiji.
Pranam, Basolingam.
Namaste, Srinivas. Nice to connect you after one more session now. Swamiji, just I wanted to this was a wonderful session which I learned it, and I just want to add few comments based on the feedback given by a couple of them. One is answering to, Gayatri Madam, just whatever the learnings that we do in our education.
Mr. Basolingam, little louder and
Yeah,
voice is breaking.
Is it better now? Is it better now, Swamiji?
Yeah.
The education system has a great influence on any individual during their study days and also during the professional time. And just I want to take an example like I being a student of Ramakrishna Mission Vidyalaya, and how it has greatly influenced during my professional life, and especially the learnings from the Karma Yoga book from Swami Vivekananda has greatly influenced how to be in a corporate world and how to manage the things and how to work with the spiritual values. And definitely corporate world has a lot of challenges, especially implementing the spiritual values and other things. And being in an IT company, still we'll be able to make it happen. It's all end of the day how we define ourselves, what is this purpose we have in our thing, and definitely we should be able to make it happen in wherever the field where we are in. And that is the one I just want to mention. The other one is coming to the online classes. I think the online classes, it is a new norm. We all need to accept it, and we need to make sure that that is going to be there. And it gives a lot of things that we will come to know to what extent we are able to prepare ourselves. As Srinivas said, the teachers are preparing a lot these days and bringing in a very high value of content to the students, because it is being visible to the parents, it's being visible to the society, and definitely they'll be able to add more value to that. And the only thing is, the thing bothering me is currently all these things are available only for the corporate schools, and it should go in deep to the government schools. And I do not know, how many of the government school children are affordable to have these online classes in terms of the, let it be a mobile or let it be a computer system, and how they are able to do it. I think the industry should come forward and volunteer and then donate wherever possible and make these systems available, and so that children can continue to do that part. And definitely that will give a very good insight into that thing, and we need to get prepared for it. And because that is the norm that is going to be, and definitely we'll be able to do a lot into able to do a lot in this area.
Take your suggestions and industry to involve in education. Mr. Sharath has got a question. Sharath P, unmute your mic and ask your question, please. Mic, unmute your mic, Sharath ji. Please ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Please come nearer, louder.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. Please continue.
I have only one doubt, sir.
Sheikh ji, please unmute your mic. Mute your mic. Yeah, continue, Sharath ji.
Sir, can I speak in Telugu?
He wants to speak in Telugu.
చెప్పండి. తెలుగులో అడుగుతారు క్వశ్చన్.
సార్, ఆత్మ శ్రద్ధ గురించి చెప్పారు స్వామీజీ. ఎడ్యుకేషన్ కాకుండా చిల్డ్రన్స్ కి అదర్ స్కిల్స్ లో కూడా మనం ట్రైన్ అప్ చేయాలి అని చెప్పి. బట్ నవ్ డేస్ ఏ స్కూల్స్ లో కూడా కార్పొరేట్ స్కూల్స్ లో కానీ గవర్నమెంట్ స్కూల్స్ లో కానీ ఎక్కడా కూడా ఇలాంటి స్మెల్ లేదు. ఇలా ఎక్కడ కూడా తయారు చేయడానికి బుక్స్ లో కానీ కరికులంలో కానీ ఎక్కడా కూడా టైం టేబుల్లో దీనికి అలాట్మెంట్ లేదు. అలాగే నెక్స్ట్ స్కూల్స్ పిల్లలు ప్రైమరీ సెక్షన్స్ నుంచి సెకండరీ సెక్షన్స్ కి, కాలేజెస్ కి, యూనివర్సిటీకి వెళ్తున్నప్పుడు వేరియస్ లెవెల్స్ లో వాళ్ళు ట్రైన్ అయ్యే ప్రాసెస్ డిఫరెంట్ గా ఉంటుంది.
చెప్పండి.
డిఫరెంట్ గా ఉంటుందా? డిఫరెంట్ గా ఉంటున్నప్పుడు ఒక టీచర్ వాళ్ళని అదర్ స్కిల్స్ లో తయారు చేయడానికి ఎలా పాసిబుల్ అవుతుంది? ఇప్పుడంతా కూడా కార్పొరేట్ బిజినెస్ మెయిన్ లీడింగ్ గా ఉంది కాబట్టి టీచర్ మాట వినే పరిస్థితి లేదు. కార్పొరేట్స్ అంతా కూడా క్వాంటిటీ ఆఫ్ వర్క్ మీద కాన్సన్ట్రేట్ చేస్తున్నారు తప్ప క్వాలిటీ ఆఫ్ వర్క్ మీద కాన్సన్ట్రేట్ చేయడం లేదు. నెవర్ టేక్ ద సజెషన్ ఆఫ్ a teacher or lecturer. They have their own business ideas. They are start implementing on us. Secondly, how we can balance home life and work life?
Okay.
These are the two questions.
One question తీసుకుందాం. He is asking that in the syllabus or in this one system today, the self-belief, Atma Shraddha concept is missing. Whether government school or a corporate school, they all fall in the same line. How do we resolve the issue?
Yes, that is exactly what we are trying to do to this program. See, we cannot, if we wait for the government, even in 100 years, it will not happen, no? You have to go beyond the system. People like you, people like us who have belief in Swamiji. See, we are doing it in a big, trying to do it in a way across the country through 5,000 schools. But, everyone, that's what I'm saying, everyone who is inspired by Swamiji, anyone who comes to such webinars, anyone who accepts these ideas, should take it upon itself, at least 100 people, I will carry this idea. You will find that you will be creating a huge chain of such people imbued with those ideas. So that 100 in 100, then you see in a matter of 5 to 6 years, the country will be flooded with those ideas. The point is, many of us, we come, attend such webinars, and then we just keep quiet. Each one of us should take it upon the mission of our life. You should take the oath. I will carry these ideas to at least 100. If we do like that, it's possible because we are doing through a program, but even 5,000 schools is, just a drop in the ocean. Today we have maybe 5 lakh, 10 lakh schools in the country. So each one of us at an individual also should simultaneously try. Maybe we will try, suppose we can put it through government influence in as part of program in schools, we will try that, but it may also take more time. But then at the individual level also we can do. Not only that, one person truly inspired can make a huge difference in this country. We are also thinking that today more than 9 lakh children have been impacted. We feel that in 10 years time, if we impact 1 crore children, even if 1 lakh really take this program, our country will be changed. There's no doubt about it. But all of us should have, first of all, that faith that it's possible. Now, supposing we lose hope, it is not there. How it's going to happen? It's not going to happen. Let me make a beginning. Let me be the first person to take these ideas to others. If each one of us can do it for 100 people, I think we can. Today, some 350 people have attended this webinar. 350 into 100, 35,000 straight away you are getting it.
Yes.
That into 100 is 35 lakhs. Imagine how it will spread exponentially. But, because we don't have that Atma Shraddha that we can impact 100 people. If you have it, it will make a big change.
Okay. So there are many questions, many messages coming. I think we can answer them on email, etc. Many questions also are there. So opinions are there. We'll send the mails to you, Srinivas and Maharaj.
Yeah.
It will be answered. We'll forward it to the concerned person.
Yeah.
Those who have any other questions in this group, the remaining participants, they can put a question, send their questions to VIHE, hyderabad.vihe@rkmm.org. That is our email ID of Human Excellence Hyderabad.
So I want just 1 minute, Bodhabayanji.
All right, please. Yes, sure.
Yeah, I just want to tell all those who have attended today and through you to any number of people.
Yes.
We have a huge program. We want many, many more resource persons to work for this Awakened Citizen program. We want to take this across the length and breadth of this country. So, you can, go to your website, theawakenedcitizen.org, theawakenedcitizen.org, or write a mail, values@rkmdelhi.org. Values@rkmdelhi.org. Please go through our website. You come be part of this program. We give a very decent honorarium or salary or whatever you may call it. Be part of it. Be part of people who can really contribute to a resurgent India. Be part of that. Take it as a mission in your life. Not only that, beyond that, we are also setting up an institute called the Vivekananda Institute of Values, where we are going even beyond this. We want to do programs for corporates, for professionals, and many others. So those of you who are interested, who want to be part of all that, you can just write to us through that mail ID, and you can also
again that mail ID, please.
values@rkmdelhi.org. Values@rkmdelhi.org.
Okay.
Yeah, I request as many of you as possible to come with not only to join, you can also give very concrete, positive suggestions which we are willing to consider. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Podumayanji. Thanks for this beautiful seminar.
Remarks from Srinivas also.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. And I think that I'm sure it's been an enlightening session. Maharaj had a lot to say. And I just want to make a very important one, just as a suggestion. I think that this more and more I'm realizing that this idea that if you take one or two ideas and really digest it deeply, I think some change will come in our own life is something which we should also think about. Because it will really bring some shift in all of us. I'm finding that there are lots of people who talk Swami Vivekananda but don't live Swami Vivekananda. So I just want to bring that to your attention once more. Thank you very much.
Yes. Personal life and implementation and the principles are very important.
Yes.
And then take it forward into the society, into the curriculum, into the system.
Correct.
That will bring about a change. So on behalf of all the participants, hundreds of them today who have responded to our call and invitation from all over the country and through many of our centers also. We are fortunate to have Shantatma Vikas from Delhi and Srinivas from Mumbai. So I convey my namaskar, pranams to Shantatma Ji Maharaj, namaskar to Srinivas, and take this message forward, implement personal and collective, and see that message of Vivekananda, our culture, reaches the maximum number of people with quality and with efficiency. So we have a good team also in Hyderabad and coordinating everything. So next week also we'll meet. It happens to be 21st of June, which is International Yoga Day. Unfortunately, yoga we cannot do now externally, collectively. We'll have interaction and a lot of ideas on yoga and education. So we'll send you the messages, send you the naughty invitation. All of you can join that next Sunday's program and get benefited and get stimulated to spread this message of Vivekananda. So we'll end with a small prayer and offering our prayers to Sri Ramakrishna. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amrutangamaya Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tatsat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Pranams and
thank you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Maharajji, I am ending this meeting.
Yes, sir. Now we can end the meeting. I think Swamiji has left.